The 11th time, Paul says, turn from your useless things in Acts 14 and verse 15. Men, why are you doing these things? We're also men like you. And with these words, he could scarcely restrain them. And then look at verse 21. He says there, when they preached the gospel of that city, made many disciples. And then look at verse 27. He says in verse 27, and when they arrived, they gathered the church together and declared all that God had done with him and how he had opened a door of faith to the Gentiles. Again, the divine element. Paul tears his clothes, protests, he pleads with them to turn away from their useless thing idols to the living Creator God. Number 12, God makes no distinction between the Jew and Gentiles. He purifies their hearts by faith, entirely apart from the law. And that was the declaration of salvation at the Jerusalem Council. Then Lydia already talked to you about in verse 14, but I didn't read it to you. It says, and one who heard us was a woman named Lydia from the city of Thyatira, a seller of purple goods, who was a worshiper of God. The Lord opened her heart to pay attention. You know, I'm not an evangelist, but I share the gospel as often as possible. I'm in my wallet, I have a gospel tract packed today. It's ready. It's been prayed over. I'm asking the Lord for a divine appointment. You've heard me tell this probably 20 times if you've been coming to this conference 20 times. I went to Starbucks when I was writing my dissertation for Dallas Theological Seminary. I went to the same Starbucks every day. I went there for weeks in a row because the church would not let me write my dissertation on company time. I had to do it on my lunch hour, so I did, drinking coffee. And I watched my barista dying. He had liver failure because he was overdosing in drugs and everything else. His eyes turned orange. The whites turned orange. And I got so convicted that I did one of those things where I said, Lord, if no one's in line, I'll share the gospel with them because I don't like to talk to people when their boss is watching and I'm holding up the line. And one day I came in, no one was in line. And so he was the deliverer of my coffee and he slipped it across the counter to me and I said, Daniel, boy, do that. I can read. He had a name tag on. I said, Daniel, and he didn't know how I knew his name because they always forget they're wearing those things. And I said, Daniel, someday you're going to wake up in a place you don't want to be. I said, you are headed to hell. Oh, what was that, 21 seconds? That's all it took. And I slid, because people were coming, so I wanted it short and sweet. And I slid my gospel tract across the counter. As he pushed the coffee, I pushed the tract. And I said, Daniel, that explains how you can have God change your heart. And you know what the Lord did at that instant? Opened a drug addict who was overdosing, who told me later, he was totally wearing black. He had more piercings than anyone I've ever seen in my life. He had multiple through tongue. He had every inch of his ear pierced. He had his cheeks pierced. He had everything pierced. Wore total black with metal and spikes everywhere and chains at Starbucks around his waist. He was total black goth. And 6 months later, he finally found me, told me the story you've heard me say. He looked me right in the eye with pure whites of the eyes, and he said, hey man, I've been looking for you for 6 months. You scared the hell out of me. That was his testimony. Because God, not me, that was the lamest gospel presentation you could ever give someone. You're going to wake up somewhere where you don't want to be in hell. You know, they wouldn't allow that, word of life. But the miracle of salvation up there is framed as a divine initiative. The Lord sovereignly opens hearts to heed and obey his word. It's not how well you do. It's not how articulately and long and all the graphics you have. It's, are you obedient? And God will open hearts in front of you. And he does. We already saw believing on the Lord Jesus Christ, the Philippian jailer, following the new king of your life. We saw that in Thessalonica. I love this one, and I only have 2 minutes. I might have to end with this, and then you're going to have to find the rest of them yourself. But look at this. In chapter 17, this is actually one of my favorite ones. because I see this happening so much. And Paul, standing in the midst of the Areopagus, said, "Men of Athens, I perceive in every way you're very religious. For as I passed along, I observed the objects of your worship, found an altar to the unknown God, which therefore you worship as unknown. This I proclaim to you." Verse 24, "The God who made the world and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in temples made by hands, nor is he served by humans, as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all mankind life, breath, and everything. And he made from one man every nation of mankind to live." By the way, there's only one human race. There aren't three races. I hate that the government forums say, they used to say three. There aren't three. There's one. That's what he says, but I'm not preaching on that. He made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the earth, having determined their allotted periods, the boundaries of their dwelling place. Here it is. That they should seek God and perhaps feel their way toward him and find him. The old King James actually has a word that is unpopular now, or it's bad nowadays, grope, that they might grope toward him. How do you grope? Well, you can only grope something that is close enough for you to reach. Do you understand what that verse is saying? God stands within an arm's length of everybody on earth, and he's waiting for them to just do this. That they can reach out, seek God, feel their way toward him, find him. He's not far from each of us. Everyone. I was invited, now I have 33 seconds, I was invited to speak at a concert, rarely. I never invited to sing, but I was invited to speak. But they knew me, and they said, "There's 3,000 people here. You have 2.5 minutes. We're putting reflective tape there. We're cutting the lights. Keep your eyes closed. Then open them and go to the reflection, and you have, your 3 minutes or whatever, just over 3 minutes." Oh, that was so hard to get a 3-minute message, and I worked and worked and worked, and I settled on this verse. And I told them when the lights came on, I looked at them, I said, God is not far from every one of us here. God is within an arm's length. And I shared a little bit of what Christ could do, and I said, all bow your heads, and I said, right now you can reach out to the Lord. And if you reach out right where you are, you will find him. They filmed it. I had worked so long on it. My kids got a hold of it. They said, Dad, we're going to post that too, right after Isaiah. And they posted it on YouTube. I thought, that was silly, a 2.5, 3-minute thing. 6 months later, I got a note from a woman riding the London Tube. That's what they call the subway, the Tube. She said, I was on my way back from a concert. She said, I'm 65 years old. I've been to all the Queen and, Rolling Stones and the Beatles. I've been to all of them. She said, I bring a record jacket back from Glastonbury every time I go to a concert, and I mark on it how many times I got smashed, how many times I got laid. That was her term for sexual immorality, laid. And, and a few other things. She'd write in marker on her record cover, and she had her whole apartment in London was all the years that she'd been going since she was a teenager of these covers. And she said, I was riding home from Glastonbury. She said, I hadn't gotten laid. I hadn't gotten smashed. I'm too old for all that. No one chases and wants me. And she said, I don't feel very well, so I didn't get blasted and drunk. So she said, I kind of was feeling hopeless, like I'm too old for any fun. And so I leaned over on the tube and I typed in hope for God or God of hope or something like that into Google. And that concert, 3-minute thing came up. So she's sitting listening to it. And she said, when you said bow your head, I bowed my head. And she said, when you said, if you want God, reach out for him. She said, there on the subway with my head bowed, with all the hundreds of Londoners around me, I went like this. She said, that was 6 months ago. She said, my life has absolutely changed. She said, I found him, God. She said, I'm in a little church. I've gotten baptized. I'm a part of it. And she said, I'm walking from the dumpster. She said, I've come to the point in my life where I'm throwing away, not selling on eBay. You know, can you imagine original Queen and Beatle and Rolling Stone album, what she could have gotten? She said, I threw all of them, she called it, in the bin. That's the dumpster. You see, reaching out to the true Creator and Redeemer and coming Judge, that's what Paul said that salvation is about.